If Mark Fuhrman were investigating this, believe me, we would find out real quick what happened.
Bingo! Brian Craig is exactly right. Mark Fuhrman must lead the investigation of the Jeffrey Epstein suicide, because we just can't trust the normal investigatory agencies. Now, I'm going to show you right now why Brian has recommended, great recommendation, by the way, that Mark Fuhrman be the leader of the independent investigation of the Epstein suicide, and why we can't trust the FBI.
Live, we are talking about the murder of Jeffrey Epstein in jail. The murder of Jeffrey Epstein. Obvious, it was a hit job. Everyone knows this. And, you know, when they announced that the FBI was going to be investigating this, my media thought was, oh, really? Who's interviewing the guards? Peter Strzok? Who's going to be in charge of this investigation? Are they bringing Comey and Mueller out of retirement to handle this investigation? Oh, I feel so relieved. There needs to be an independent investigation of this. If I were the Attorney General, you know who I was just thinking during the break, who could you bring in that you can trust? I'm serious. And I would put together a totally independent group of people, if I were the Attorney General, that have no connections to the federal law enforcement agencies to investigate this. And there's 3 men that I would put on this. Sheriff Joe Arpaio, number 1, pardoned by the president. Number 2, Sheriff Clark. And number 3, to handle the interviews and direct investigation, Mark Fuhrman, who brought Michael Skakel to justice. And I'm serious as a heart attack. Sheriff Joe Arpaio, Sheriff Clark, and Mark Fuhrman. Who else can you trust? And I'm serious. Who else other than Mark Fuhrman, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and Sheriff Clark would you trust? And I'll tell you, out of those 3 names, I trust Mark Fuhrman the best. And I would have him the lead investigator in this. He would get to the bottom of it, and it would be solved very quickly. Look what he did. He brought Michael Skakel to justice, didn't he? Do you have anyone else that's more independent and trustworthy? 1-888-GO-KANE-1. Trey Gowdy's full of it. No, not Trey Gowdy. Trey Gowdy talks the talk, and then when it gets down to it, he, weasels out. He's a big disappointment to me, Trey Gowdy. But that's who I would put into it. Mark Fuhrman's the one I would want to if Mark Fuhrman were investigating this, believe me, we would find out real quick what happened.
He's right. And let's face it, if the FBI leads this investigation, is how many people are really going to believe the results that they report? There's going to be skepticism for years. So definitely it should be Mark Fuhrman leading an independent investigation. Brian Craig, at the beginning of his show, the Steve Kane show, he's the co-host, he came up with exactly why this whole suicide is extremely suspicious. And I would have actually included it in this video, but I didn't want to get away from the fact that it's Mark Fuhrman. Remember that. Mark Fuhrman must be appointed to lead a special investigation of this suicide. And by the way, I recommend everybody out there listen in to Brian Craig. I'm sure tomorrow and in the days following, he's going to be talking a lot more about this Epstein suicide. And it's on down here in South Florida. It's on WWNN Radio. It's 1470. And you're going to find out also why the Steve Kane Show is the longest running radio program in Florida history. 42 years on the air. So check out, I'm going to have the link below. And so check it out. What you really want to do is check out from about the 4:30 mark for the next 10 minutes at the beginning of a show where he sums up this whole thing about Epstein's suicide. And the important thing that I want you all to do is to go out on the internet and on the especially on the social media and demand that Mark Fuhrman be appointed to lead the investigation of the Jeffrey Epstein suicide?
If Mark Fuhrman were investigating this, believe me, we would find out real quick what happened. If Mark Fuhrman were investigating this, believe me, we would find out real quick what happened. If Mark Fuhrman were investigating this, believe me, we would find out real quick what happened.